Happy New Year, mother-in-law. Here's your gift, an eviction notice. My wife's voice cut through the chime of midnight like a blade. She handed her mother the envelope with a bright smile, while cameras flashed and cousins clapped, thinking it was some elaborate joke. But it wasn't. And I knew that tone in her voice, cold, practiced, final. And for you, my love, she turned to me and held out another envelope. Divorce papers. Laughter erupted around us again, like this was all part of the night's entertainment. I blinked. Are you serious? I just lost my job yesterday. You knew that. She leaned in, whispering, that's why the timing's perfect. I opened the envelope, half expecting it to be blank, a prank. But it wasn't. Legal seal. Her signature. Pages. But there was something else. A second document tucked behind it. I pulled it out slowly. It wasn't addressed to me. It was a notarized asset transfer. My name was nowhere on it, but our entire house, cars, savings and shares were. All signed over. To her mother. My fingers went numb. She turned away like I was no longer in the room. But I wasn't angry. I smiled. Because she had no idea what I'd already done yesterday. Yesterday morning, while she was getting her nails done and her mother was out shopping for rugs for our future grandchildren, I visited the county clerk's office. What they didn't know was that after months of unemployment, I had quietly sold one of the patents I'd co-developed in my old job. Not to a local startup. No. I sold it to a Singaporean tech giant for $4.8 million. Claim. Text. Verified. And I used a slice of that money to do two things. First, I bought the house. Yes, the same house she had signed over to her mother yesterday. The original deed had expired 2 weeks ago when the bank took it back after a missed payment. One they didn't know about because I made sure to stop autopay. I bought it in cash. Under a holding company. Second, I rewrote my will. Everything, every penny, asset, car and stock, was now in a trust. A trust that she couldn't touch. The party music roared behind me, but I just stood there, quiet as her cousins laughed at the joke divorce. My wife winked at me like she'd already won. And I nodded back. Because she didn't know she was standing on my property. She clinked glasses with her mother, tossed her hair, and toasted loudly to new beginnings. Her cousins hooped and cheered, pretending to sympathize, but I knew they'd been in on it. They all thought I was a fool with no job, no money, and no spine. They didn't know the wine they were drinking had been delivered to my address. Under my name. Her mother leaned toward me and smirked. Don't worry, sweetie. You'll land on your feet. Or at least find a cot at the shelter. I smiled politely. I already have a roof over my head. She blinked, confused. That's when the doorbell rang. A man in uniform stepped in holding a clipboard. Eviction service. I need Mrs. Patel and all listed occupants to vacate within 30 minutes. My wife's laughter died in her throat. Her mother's wine glass shattered on the floor. What the hell is this? She snapped, storming over to the man. He didn't flinch. Legal order. The house was sold last week. New owner signed it over today. She turned to me, her eyes wild. You can't. I handed her the second envelope from earlier. Page 2. You signed your name over, remember? And then I added quietly. Welcome to my housewarming. For a second the room was frozen. Then her uncle lunged at me. You think this is funny? Humiliating us on New Year's Eve. I stepped back calmly, pulled my phone from my coat pocket and played the security footage, their entire champagne toast from 20 minutes earlier, followed by my wife's exact words, he's jobless. Clueless. By next month he'll be out on the streets. I glanced at the screen. The cameras? Still connected to my name. My system. My house. My wife's cousin gasped. Her mother turned red. You recorded us? No, I said, pocketing the phone. I recorded you. You chose your words. She opened her mouth to scream, but I cut her off. Your boyfriend, I added coldly, might want to find another place to crash. Since his name is on nothing. That was when she realized I knew. Her eyes darted to her purse, where I'd seen the burner phone earlier. I nodded slowly. Happy New Year, darling. You traded everything for an affair, a lie, and a fake future. The officer gestured. Ma'am, you and your guests need to leave now. She stared at me, tears rising. I didn't flinch. She hadn't even begun to feel what I had. The house felt different now, like the soul had been scraped out of it. She stood by the door, arms folded, trying to bargain. You don't understand, Alex, she whispered. It wasn't serious. I panicked. The money, your job, everything was falling apart. I stared at her, expression blank. So your solution was to sleep with someone else and then kick me out of my own home on New Year's Eve? She stepped forward, but the officer blocked her. This is your final warning. The car's waiting. My wife, ex-wife technically, once the papers were signed, turned toward her mother, then back to me. I didn't mean to lose you, she whispered. I almost laughed. You didn't lose me. You bet against me. That's different. I watched as her heels clicked across the marble floor one last time, every step echoing in silence. She paused in the doorway. What happens now? I looked around the room. The champagne flutes. The fake laughter. The betrayal written into the walls. I answered softly, now? I rebuild. Without dead weight. And I shut the door. But I knew this wasn't over yet. Not until I paid one last visit to her lover's house. I didn't drive straight home that night. Instead, I followed the address I had found earlier, the one from the flirty text on her phone, the one she thought I'd never see. It led me to a luxury condo downtown. Sleek, arrogant, just like him. I parked across the street and waited. At 10:03 p.m. he arrived, gym bag slung over his shoulder, keys dangling like trophies. I stepped out, slow and deliberate. He didn't recognize me until I was 10 feet away. Oh, hey man, look, I didn't know she was. I held up my hand. Relax. I'm not here to fight. He paused, confused. I reached into my coat and handed him a folder. He opened it, and paled. You recorded everything? I smiled. Screenshots. Texts. Bank transfers. Hotel footage. You're lucky I'm not pressing charges. His voice shook. What do you want? Nothing, I said, turning. Just thought you should know you'll be on a billboard tomorrow. My company's new mental health campaign. Real stories of betrayal. Your face will be front and center. His knees buckled slightly. You can't do that. I grinned. I already did. Then I walked away, one last chess move still waiting for daylight. The billboard went up the next morning. Downtown skyline, 30 feet high. His smug face beside the words, "Gaslighters don't look like villains, until they do." It exploded online within hours. By noon, my office receptionist had 47 voicemails, reporters, influencers, even his old company trying to do damage control. But I didn't return a single call. I just waited. At 6:42 p.m., my wife showed up at my condo unannounced. Makeup smudged. Eyes wild. She barged in before I said a word. You humiliated me. Why would you? I stayed seated. You think you can just destroy people because you're rich now? No, I said calmly. I think I can destroy people because I know how they operate. She stood frozen. Then her gaze dropped to the table, a single sheet of paper lying between us. Her face drained. You had me sign a postnup? It was in the anniversary surprise envelope you barely looked at. She stumbled back, shaking. You can't. You wouldn't? I already did. The silence between us cracked something invisible. But before she turned to leave, I added, and just so you know, the eviction notice was real. Happy New Year. 2 weeks later, I stood on stage, shaking hands with the CEO of a nonprofit that helps evicted families find shelter. Press cameras flashed. Reporters asked questions about the mysterious donor who had funded 10 emergency housing projects overnight. I simply smiled. No interviews. No ego. Just a quiet victory. My ex-wife? She moved in with her simple boyfriend after the media fallout. Turns out he did love her, until the lawsuit hit for using company funds to cover their Maldives trip. Then he ghosted her. Her mother called me, again, begging for help. Think about your daughter. I did. That's why I made sure her trust fund was legally protected from both of them. That's why I never raised my voice. That's why I never stopped watching. My name is Caleb Morgan. I loved with my whole heart. I lost with quiet dignity. And I planned with absolute precision. They tried to rob me of my peace. So I gave them back everything they gave me, in silence, in shadows, in full. But now I don't look back. Because every time I hear the New Year chimes, I remember. They gave me a gift that night. They gave me freedom.